Aloha! Emele Kamiki Maka. We are Second Chance Ohana, and we are so excited about today's collab. We are hosting the Furniture Flipping Spirit of Christmas Challenge. So when you're done checking out this video, make sure to check out the rest of the playlist of all these incredible pieces, because all participants are flipping a piece of furniture and either donating that piece or the profits from a piece to someone in need or someone deserving, or to a charity or organization of their choice. We hope that you'll stick around as we see if we can give a very special piece of furniture a second chance.
Do you remember how long we searched for this piece of furniture?
I think we were looking at Marketplace for weeks, and I scoured 8 thrift stores and found nothing.
It was at Say Yes to the Dresser. They have a furniture farmers market like once a month.
Yeah, so once a month they open up their warehouse. They let local furniture flippers come in and take a look at all their worn, beaten down furniture and sell it at really reasonable rates. We got this piece for $15.
And look at it, it's solid maple. It's gorgeous underneath all that grime.
This piece wins the award for filthiest piece we've ever done. I'm pretty sure it must have been sitting in their warehouse for months. And I'm so glad, because it means we got to end up with it. One of the unexpected perks of flipping furniture is I feel like we're uncovering a time capsule with almost every piece. Usually there's some sort of trace of time past. And in this case, hidden underneath those drawers, there was graduation announcements, a cookbook, a handwritten Christmas card. I mean, I love finding cool keepsakes like this that let you into the person's life from all those years ago.
Ew, your water is grody. As always, we start off with cleaning each piece, and in this case, we use the LA's Totally Awesome degreasing cleaner that we picked up from Dollar Tree. So Dani's just giving it a really good scrub, and then after she cleans it all, then she's going back and rinsing it thoroughly.
This has to be one of the most satisfying parts about being a furniture flipper, but only when your piece is solid wood like this. There's no fear of burning through veneer, so we're using an 80 grit coarse sandpaper to start with, just to get rid of these years and layers of scratches and stains. And isn't this just incredible? I love watching all this stuff just slough off instantly.
With sanding, it's always important to start with a low grit sandpaper, which when I say low grit, that's a coarse grit. And here we're able to use 80 grit, but a lot of times we have to start with 120. And then we move up. We usually move up to, after the 120, a higher grit, 180, to smooth that out. And then finally, we use a 220 to just really give that wood a baby but smooth finish. Pop said he'd give me $2 if I said baby butt.
For the Spirit of Christmas Challenge, we were so excited when we thought of Johanna and her husband Josh. They are on staff at our local Teen Challenge facility. They live in their own home, but on the same property, and we believe in the work that they are doing. We'll be sharing a lot more about Teen Challenge later in this video, but they are sacrificing a lot to serve these men. And they don't get a whole lot of thanks in return. So we wanted to bless them and give them a wonderful gift for their home that they can use for years to come.
As you guys know, water can really damage wood. In this case, we had a major water ring that left a dark stain in like a ring, and we weren't able to get it out with just sanding. Do you remember what it looked like before? And here's what it looked like after we sanded it as much as we could. So we pulled out the barkeeper's friend. And what this is, barkeeper's friend is just oxalic acid. So you can either buy oxalic acid or you can just use the barkeeper's friend. So basically, oxalic acid bleaches out stains in the wood. And it doesn't always take out all of it, but it really does help to lighten it up quite a bit. This happens to be some liquid barkeeper's friend that we have, so we just poured it on and kind of brushed it into the wood and then let it sit there for, I think, about 15 minutes. Just let it dry. The ring didn't completely disappear, so we did the whole process one more time. And that helped, but the ring was still there. So at this point, we're just hoping that the stain would cover the ring enough.
Over the years, this top has started splitting between the planks. Not a lot, but we do need to fill in these gaps so it's nice and solid. And rather than using some random wood filler that's going to be a completely off color, the best way to make this seamless and less noticeable is to use some wood glue and sawdust from this piece, from the maple wood, and push it down into those gaps. Because once we sand over it, you're not even going to be able to see it because it blends in so naturally.
Now comes the fun part. We get to start staining. For this stain, we wanted a medium color. We went with the Minwax gel stain in chestnut. And we found in our dry climate that the gel stain gets really tacky really fast. So we usually make this a two-person job. And one person applies the stain, the other person rubs it off, and we don't give it much time to dry. This method seems to work really well for us.
All right, Mom, we took a shortcut once again, which we should never do. We skipped the step of using mineral spirits to look for flaws, and we didn't notice them until we stained. And now there's glue marks left, which you can't feel. It feels great to the touch, but there's still some glue left that makes it look like bleach spots on the wood, which could be fine, and we could leave.
Adds character.
Adds character, yes. And it's not bad, but because we're giving this to Johanna, I want to make sure it's beautiful for her. So let's just sand those spots down, restain them, and then we can start our layers of poly.
Yeah, we can try that. I did a lot of sanding, so I hope it works.
Me too. Let's see.
So this is one of the drawbacks about using glue with the sawdust, is that glue, wherever it touches, it will not accept the stain if you don't get it completely sanded away. So here I had to go back and just resand those areas. I had to sand pretty deep, get it back down to the bare wood and then some. After the sanding, I did some spot staining. I just used a little Q-tip and just kind of feathered it in to blend it with the rest of the stain. And it turned out pretty well.
Now that we have the body of this cabinet basically figured out, time to get going on the drawer. So we're going to be painting this, so we're just going to give it a quick scuff sand with a 180 grit.
The holes on these drawers were pretty large, so we could have filled them with wood putty. But wood putty tends to shrink and we'd have to do it a few times. So we tried the old toothpick trick. And for this, you just get a bunch of toothpicks and put a lot of glue on them, tape them up, and then just shove them into the hole and let them dry. After they're all dry, we just took our multi-tool and went back and just cut them off. And then did a final sand to make them flush with the surface of the drawer.
After we sanded down those toothpicks, we just used a tiniest bit of wood filler because there's still the tiniest little gaps between those toothpicks. So we just want to make sure that when we paint over this, it's completely flush and smooth as though it's all solid wood. And it worked perfectly. This piece is 80 to 90 years old, so we want to make sure to make it fresh. It's in fantastic condition, but there's little stains and the wood grain raises over time. So we're just giving this drawer a fresh start by sanding it down with a 180 grit, making it smooth for years to come.
All right, time to paint. We're using our favorite paint on this, Melange 1. And as most of you know, this is an all-in-one paint. It has a primer and a top coat built in, and we just love it. Here it is. We're using jet black, which is one of our favorite colors just because it's so classic.
As a little surprise for Johanna and her family, we decided to decorate the sides of the drawers with this sticky stencil from Redesign with Prima. It's a vinyl that you just lay on and it sticks right to the surface, and then you can just blot on your paint, peel it off when you're done, and we even reuse it because it's really sticky, and use that same piece on the other side as well.
Okay, Mom here. Yes, there's one thing you guys need to remember, and I keep reminding Dani, the less paint you use for this process, the better. So after you load your brush with the paint, dab it on a paper towel or something to get the excess off. Otherwise, the paint will go on really thick and just kind of seep under the stencil, and you don't want that.
You know us. There's no way we're leaving this traditional, formal, early American curviness on the bottom. So first thing first, let's get rid of this trim piece, which I thought I could just hit off. Unfortunately, it was screwed on. Thanks for letting me know, Mom. Previously, we would have just tossed this trim, but we're really trying to keep things out of the landfill, and because of the cost of lumber now, it makes sense to try to reuse it and rework these pieces. And it's solid maple, so we know the color will match if we are able to make this work. We are so lucky to have Nelson live across the streets, aka Mr. Big Guns. We call him in when we're doing something that just we don't feel comfortable with doing on our own, and he has always been so happy to help. So in order to make that maple trim piece work, we're going to get rid of those curves, and then we're going to plane it. And thankfully, Nelson happens to have a planer so that we can get it nice and flat on the front and get rid of that rounded edge. All I can say is if Pops is wearing his orange tennis shoes, I know he's willing to be in the camera and help out. So we pulled out that skill saw so that we could trim off the curves of the sides too, because these curves have got to go. In order to get rid of this early American curved front style, we want to modernize it. So we had the brilliant idea of just pulling apart the trim and flipping that door front to give a nice flat surface on the front. And that was an amazing plan, but we have an even better idea that we're so excited to run with now. Now that the inserts of the cabinets are gone, we're going to reattach 3 of the sides of each door just to prep it for what's going in next. Da 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 da! We are using 1/4-inch dowels. They're 18 inches long, which perfectly fits these doors. And really, we're just adding wood glue and sticking them right into the grooves. In case you're wondering, we bought a pack of 100 dowels and used every single one of them, 50 for each door. and we still had a little bit of gappage in each door, so I wish I had bought like a pack of 120 or 150. So instead, we had to get creative. Okay, so I worked on the cabinet doors this weekend. You want to grab that?
Yeah.
While you were busy volunteering, I was working on these things because the dowels came.
I like it.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
I used every single one. So there's a little bit of gappage because I feel like I could probably fit one more in on each thing, but I just didn't have another. So I think I love it. I'm curious to see what it'll look like once we paint it. I don't know how there's kind of these little gaps and a little bit of bowing, what it'll look like.
Right, yeah, well, let's paint it, and if we still don't like it, we can just glue a board onto the back and just kind of, yeah, I think that will kind of even it out.
That's a good idea. That's a great idea. All right, well, let's paint it and give it a whirl, see how it turns out.
All right, it's fun. Honestly, so much of what we do is just experimenting or trial and error. And after we painted up the doors, we decided the gaps were just too large. So we're gonna try using some bamboo skewers that we had on hand and just fill in some of the gaps with those.
The backs of those cabinets, after adding the skewers, definitely looks unprofessional now. So we're just going to cut down this luan that we already had on hand left over from another project. We're cutting it down to the exact dimensions of the door size so that we can lay it over the back, paint it black to keep a nice professional crisp look. Nelson, Mr. Big Guns, used to be a framer, so he loaned us his framing stapler to get this to stay down and sit flush with a cabinet door, and it worked perfectly. The inside of this cabinet is just one large cavity, and we knew it'd be much more useful for our family if there was a shelf for storage in there. So we're just gonna add one ourselves using scrap wood we already have in our garage. This shelf is just a little wider than our miter saw cuts, and I hate using our table saw. There's just something about it that drives me crazy. So my little solution is to cut what I can on one side, flip it over, and finish the cut. Easy peasy, but you might need to do just a little extra sanding on the edge. The scrap wood I used for the shelf is just a plywood, so the edges show all the different layers of it, so we want to cover that up to make it look like one solid piece of birch. So we're going to use this birch veneer edging, which already has adhesive on the back, and you just get it in place and iron it on and trim off the excess, and it looks gorgeous when it's all done. Our favorite way to top coat wood is using this wipe-on poly, and it really is that simple. You pour it on and wipe it all over, and it's nice and even, and it just leaves the right amount of sheen, and it makes that wood look so rich. So we're going to use this on the shelf, multiple coats. We're going to do multiple coats on the wood of our cabinet. We typically do 4 coats for really high use surfaces, high traffic areas, and on the sides of the body we use 3.
Dani came up with a really creative way to make some very cool handles. She found a cheese board of some sort at a thrift store for about $1, and she's just gonna slice off a couple of the edges.
We found these super cute MCM tapered legs on Amazon for a great deal. We'll make sure to link them below. And we finally found the easiest way to sand these down. Because these legs have a little screw on the top of them, we just attached those to the drill, made it nice and tight, and then held onto a piece of sandpaper and rotated that drill around and around, and it gave us the smoothest, quickest sand we've ever gotten. In order to clean and use some of the hardware from the original piece, we put it in a hardware soup bath, just boiling vinegar and water. When it comes out, we give it a good scrub with a brush and Barkeeper's Friend. And this, what you're seeing right now, is the final step, the wiping it down with a really fine steel wool. And now it looks brand new, ready to go. Time to put this baby back together. Magnets, handles, and hinges. Oh my! Johanna was hoping for something with a little MCM style. And what fun to include funky retro little handles. But first we need to make the holes for these because they were not the same distance as the original handles. If you haven't tried one of these handy little template tools, spend the $5 and order one on Amazon. It makes it so easy to make sure that they're level and that they're symmetrical on each side. So we're just going to use this tool real quick to find where my holes are going to go, drill out the pilot holes, and screw them in.
And for an extra special touch, we love to use the Howard's Feed and Wax. It just adds a little extra something to that dried out wood inside the drawer, and it smells so good.
It's delivery day. We are so excited and a little bit nervous to take this over to Josh and Johanna's. Can't wait to see what they think. So we're gonna get this wrapped up and all protected and drive it about 15 minutes to their place. We are thrilled to be donating a piece of furniture that is straight from our hearts, straight to Johanna and Josh's home. They are incredible people. We've asked Josh to share more about the ministry that they work with.
Yeah, Teen Challenge is a faith-based drug and alcohol rehabilitation center that's been in Arizona for over 60 years. And I get to be the center supervisor for the men's center here in New River. But we actually have 6 centers across the state helping men, women, and children of all ages. But it's just an amazing place. It's different from any normal drug and alcohol rehab that you hear, because their goal is to get people sober, and our goal is to help people find a relationship with Christ and find freedom in that. So it's a really amazing program.
And right before they open it, we want to just take a moment and remind you of what this piece looked like before we started.
Look at that.
Oh my goodness! Wow! That is beautiful. Oh my gosh! Wow!
Very cool.
What do you think, guys? Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Oh, I love it. It looks great.
Thank you so much for watching, you guys. We hope this helped put you in the Christmas spirit. Make sure to watch the rest of this playlist if you haven't already to see all the incredible furniture transformations as well as the stories behind them. Mele Kalikimaka and Aloha.